I don't think it's true that Ojibwe were peaceful and the Dakota were warlike. I think both had a lot of peaceful things in their culture, and both groups also had conflict. So I would hesitate to put a value judgment on any one particular group, one way or the other. There was conflict between the Ojibwe and Dakota at times. The times that the Ojibwe and Dakota were at peace or in strong alliance with one another were many more years than the times when they were in conflict with each other, both before and after the period of conflict. There's a lot of cultural sharing back and forth, much more than many people know, including major clans like the Kingfisher clan and Wolf clan actually were introduced to the Ojibwe through Dakota paternity in marriages between people from the tribes. Little Crow had a black stone pipe. Black stone could only be acquired in Ojibwe country because there was an adoption and exchange of pipes between Dakota and Ojibwe people. But the history was complex, and I don't know how much you guys want me to get into it, but the conflict that erupted between the Ojibwe and Dakota, I mean, there's a whole story to how that happened. Same with the peace that was made between the Ojibwe and the Dakota. There's a lot to that. So I don't know. You guys want me to go off the rails a little bit? Elena's like, yes, it's Monday. I really need to rest. Just tell us the story. All right, a little bit. Also, should mention, both of the groups, the Ojibwe and the Dakota, expanded their territory about 20-fold after contact with Europeans, largely at the expense of other tribes. So that's not always a pleasant truth, but it is a truth. Yeah, when the French first encountered the Ojibwe in 1600, we had a population center around Sault Ste. Marie. We weren't even living in Minnesota yet. Through a series of complex developments, we expanded both east and west. And some of that was like beyond, it wasn't like an imperial thing for the Ojibwe, but the French and the English were at each other's throats for hundreds of years. When they came to North America, they were trying to establish colonies, the French in Montreal, the British in Virginia. They were fighting wars with each other on multiple continents, and they tried to drag the natives into the wars. And there's a lot more context to unpack about what happened there, but really from, the mid 1600s until 1701, the French and British had a major war with one another. They called the Beaver Wars. The British armed and encouraged the Iroquois Confederacy. There's 5 and eventually 6 tribes in that confederacy to attack their native neighbors, to displace them, especially the ones that were on more friendly terms with the French. And their wars, especially with the Huron tribe, which is in their same language family, they were devastated, the Huron. And the Huron lived in like the eastern Great Lakes. Then they started attacking the Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi. The Three Fires Confederacy was formed. They eventually allied themselves with the French and defeated the Iroquois. That happened in 1701. When that happened, there were about 20% of the Huron people had survived their attacks from the Iroquois. And they lost a lot of territory. So as the Ojibwe kind of defeated the Iroquois, they ended up absorbing territory to the east that had been Huron territory, who they had been friendly with. And that stayed a permanent condition. Some of the communities, like the Ojibwe community at Walpole Island, which is close to Detroit, was populated by Ojibwe and Huron people. It's sometimes called Wyandot. And then the Ojibwe also expanded westward in peaceful relationship with the Dakota. So there was a major peace conference between the Ojibwe and the Dakota. At this point in time, the Ojibwe had long-standing trade relations with the French. The Dakota were out of a trade zone, like they were too far away from the Spanish, the British, or the French to directly trade with them. And so the Ojibwe agreed to act as middlemen and Dakota trade with the French. The Dakota offered the Ojibwe settlement rights in some of their territory in northern Wisconsin, including places like Madeline Island, what's now the Bad River and Red Cliff reservations, Lacouture, places like that. And so they were great friends. They were even together in war expeditions against other enemies and stuff like that. And then stuff went sideways. And it was mainly like, you could almost boil this down to blame it on the French guy. So there's this French guy named Pierre Galteur de Varenne, Sieur de la Verendrye. He was tasked in the 1730s with finding a passage to the Western Sea. In other words, get to the Pacific Ocean. There actually is what they call a Northwest Passage. There's a way to get to the Pacific from the Great Lakes. It's just 3,000 miles of the roughest terrain on planet Earth, and it's not super practical. Over the Rocky Mountains and stuff like that. But they had no idea. They just thought somewhere over the next hill it's going to get there. At this point in time, like, you almost have to understand world history. So the British were winning against the French in their naval battles. The British had colonies, the American colonies. They also, in 1713, had signed a peace agreement with France that said England gets Hudson's Bay and their American colonies, and France gets this corridor in the Great Lakes, plus Louisiana. In fact, the French used to get to Louisiana by going through the Great Lakes to Green Bay, Wisconsin, down the Fox River, to the Wisconsin River, to the Mississippi River, to Louisiana, which is not practical, although you can do it, because the British were dominating in the Caribbean. So if you ever go to the Caribbean, like most of those countries were started as like the countries with the names we have now. They were all native spaces, but the French came in and colonized them, killed most of the natives, introduced diseases, brought over slaves from Africa. The populations are predominantly, of African origin, but they speak French Creole. And then England took over those colonies and they started imposing English. So today, even if you go on vacation in St. Lucia, Haiti, not that I would recommend that one right now, or a lot of those other countries, for the most part, the people speak a French Creole language, even though there might be an official English language. And there are all these like still from the colonial age. Anyways, the French are getting squished. The British had, and then the Spanish were in the picture too, colonizing throughout the rest of the Americas. They made it up to Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin, and it was not looking good. They owned Florida, quote unquote owned. So France had to find a way to find the Northwest Passage. They came to the Great Lakes. It's really interesting. They met this dude. He was a Cree guy at what's now Grand Portage, and told them what they wanted, and the Cree guy drew him a map, and the map survives to this day. It's written on birch bark, and it's got all these different lakes and rivers. It's abstract enough where it's hard to tell. He could be drawing the Northwest Passage from this lake to this lake, the major lakes, all the way through to get to the Pacific Ocean. You could also make the case they just didn't understand each other, and he's drawing a map of Cree country. But either way, the French either believed him or took the bait, or however you want to say it. They set up their trade posts in Rainy Lake on the Minnesota-Ontario border, and Lake of the Woods on the Minnesota-Ontario-Manitoba border. And then the Cree at this point were in a tough spot because the Ojibwe and Dakota are allied together, sometimes going to war against the Cree. Even though the Ojibwe and Cree are like friends now and speak very similar languages and stuff, that sometimes surprises people. They had no trade partners. So as the French enter the picture, they really want French trade, guns, metal traps, all these different things. So they tell La Verendrye, well, you're going to trade in our community. We need to cement this our way through adoption. We would like to adopt your son. And reading Verendrye's journals is almost hilarious. He's writing in his journals, oh no, how can I trust the care of my son to these savages? But we cannot let them take the French for cowards, so I must acquiesce. His son's an adult, you know. So they ritually adopt his son, Jean-Baptiste. A few months later, the Cree are like, well, you know, the Dakota have been attacking us. We're going to go take out a war expedition. And we're going to bring all of our relatives, including your son. So he's writing in his journals, oh no, I can't trust my son to these savages. We cannot let them take the French for cowards. I must acquiesce again, you know. So he goes on this war expedition. They come to Red Lake. And it's interesting, like the Cree were allied with the Assiniboine. The Assiniboine, it's another sidebar, spoke Nakota. They're an offshoot. There's actually two dudes who were courting the same woman. One of them won. The other one got mad, killed his rival. Their family killed him. There were reprisal killings until this whole group of people split off from the Nakota, and they were enemy tribes, but speak the same language, same culture. So the Nakota Cree attack at Red Lake, which is a Nakota community at the time. The Nakota call out, who's killing us? And the Nakota speaking Assiniboine answer back, it is the Frenchmen. There were a couple of French guys there, they could see them, white guys, who weren't even killing people. After that, the Nakota are like, holy crap, we just got attacked by the Frenchmen. We've been trading with the French through our Ojibwe partners, and there are even French trade posts in Dakota country and Nakota country now. So they decide, what are we going to do? Well, we don't want an all-out war with the French because we need their trade, but we got to teach them a lesson. So they put together a war expedition. They came up to Lake of the Woods, and they came across a group of Frenchmen, and it did happen to be Jean-Baptiste, this guy's son, the Catholic priest, and there were 19 fur traders. Together, that comprised the overwhelming majority of French people in all of Lake of the Woods. Killed them all. Cut off their heads, wrapped each one in a beaver pelt, and put them in a circle. The message was, you had a council, you made a decision to attack us, that's what happens. So to them, they're like, the message is, French people aren't safe hanging out with the Cree, you're still safe with us. Done. Jean-Baptiste is like, are you serious? They just killed my son, they killed most of my help. He took all of his tobacco, trade goods, everything else he had, and he piled it all up. And he started telling the Cree and the Assiniboine, we are going to wage a genocidal war against the Dakota. And if you want our help, you have to kill them. Went to the Ojibwe, who had been friends with the French now for 150 years, and said, if you want to keep your friendship with the French, you got to kill Dakotas. And the Ojibwe are in this tough spot. It's like, we can. And then also the Cree and Assiniboine said, we will offer you territory and settlement rights in northern Minnesota, which is Cree country, if you break your alliance with the Dakota and attack them. So they had this plan, like the Assiniboine are going to come down the Red River, Cree are going to come down the Big Fork River, the Ojibwe are going to go down the Mississippi, big three-pronged attack, displace the Dakota. So there was also a smallpox epidemic at the time. Devastating for the Assiniboine, especially they dumped their furs, contaminated furs in the river. You couldn't even see water. It was all fur. So here the Dakota thinking maybe there'll be some retaliation from the Cree or maybe the French, but instead they get attacked by their longtime friends, the Ojibwe. And it was on. They counterattacked, they displaced the Ojibwe from northern Wisconsin. And the Ojibwe were reeling from that attack. Verendrye gets recalled to Montreal, chastised, are you serious? Your job is to find the Northwest Passage, make friends with all natives, and secure our route to the Pacific Ocean. You made war with all the natives, you forgot your entire mission, you are fired. But by then, the war was on. The Ojibwe, from communities unrelated to where the attack had come from, just got attacked by the Dakota. So they start counterattacking, and they've got friends with the Ottawa, Potawatomi, Ojibwe, the French, new friends, Cree, Assiniboine, and over time begin to, and they have significant advantages over the Dakota. including the birch bark canoe, which is lighter and faster. The Ojibwe are in upriver positions, so they can float downriver for a couple days, do an attack, escape in faster boats. The Dakota got a paddle for 2 weeks, make an attack, try to escape in heavier boats. So the Ojibwe have major advantages, both with their alliances and geographic position in birch bark canoes, and start to win out. And that conflict goes until the middle of the 1800s. The intense territorial stuff is really happening in the mid to late 1700s. That's when the Ojibwe, push the Dakota out of Leech Lake and Red Lake and stuff like that. And it's mainly territorial, more minor skirmishes by the time you get up to the 1800s. But it still went on for quite a time. The Ojibwe ended up pushing with the Cree out onto the plains, Turtle Mountain, across Manitoba. At the same time, the Dakota were part of what's called the 7 council fires, which was Dakota dominated. There were 4 Dakota divisions, 2 Nakota divisions, and 1 Western Lakota division. Those are just dialects of the same language. Dakota, Nakota, Lakota. It's not quite as simple as they just use an L in Lakota where they use an N or, a D in the other ones, but it's kind of like that. Haukola in Lakota, Haukoda, Haukona. But there are other differences too. But that group had other things going on. So it's not as simple as they got pushed out of the Great Lakes. It's also the case that they were being pulled onto the plains. You had abundant buffalo and other things, and the Dakota, Nakota, Lakota had been expanding westward, totally independent of the conflict that eventually erupted between the Ojibwe and Dakota. And that expansion was done at the expense of many other tribes. Osage, Kiowa, Mandan, Hidatsa, Arikara, and there was some pretty rough conflict between Plains tribes as that group expanded their territory 20-fold. It's not like the Ojibwe attacked, the Dakota shrunk. They were expanding in all directions and ended up fighting almost all of their neighbors through that time period. But by the time you get to the 1800s, they're pretty well established in those spaces. I bet today most Ojibwe and Dakota people don't even know the name of Verendrye that started that whole battle, and that whole process. If he had just one guy to handle himself a little differently, he would have very different results. But in the middle of the 1800s, it's another story. The Dakota came to the Ojibwe and presented them ceremonial drums and said it's against the will of the Great Spirit that our people have been fighting each other. So we will be at peace from here on out. The Ojibwe received those drums. To this day, we still sing the ceremonial songs with the Dakota words in there. And the Dakota would come en masse, hundreds of them, to these drum ceremonies. And they're supposed to be traveling east and then turning clockwise, until it reached all the cardinal directions and eventually came back to the Dakota people. And it would spread the teachings of peace and protection of the drums amongst all of the people. So that, Ojibwe and Dakota circles is viewed as like, the making of the great peace. Everybody gets along just fine now. In fact, most Ojibwe people in the border communities, places like Mille Lacs and White Earth and stuff like that, have some Dakota ancestry. I do, just a little bit. Not enough for a tribal enrollment over there, but enough to remember the names of Dakota ancestors. Yeah, well, it's a wild story,